Case, can we talk about what a Monte Carlo simulation is? I mean, this is like major jargon alert for planners and investment advisors. We throw it around sometimes with clients and we shouldn't, but can we break this down into simple terms, what a Monte Carlo simulation actually is?
Yeah, I was hoping on this video I wouldn't have to talk for 3 or 4 minutes in the very beginning to set you guys up for an answer, but that's all right. So Monte Carlo simulation is a retirement planning tool that a lot of financial advisors and financial planners will use to assess retirement viability. Basically, what it does is it runs 1,000 different scenarios using inputs like withdrawal needs from a retirement plan, anticipated investment returns, anticipated inflation rates. It kind of bakes everything in there and then runs, like I said, a lot of different scenarios, and it spits out a probability, or some people use a thumbs up or a green light versus a red light or a yellow light, or every firm kind of has their different spin on how they present it to clients. But basically, it's if you have a 100% success rate, then your plan looks good in all of these different simulations that the Monte Carlo ran. So that means that if everything goes according to plan, you will not run out of money in retirement. So yeah,
So should we be aiming for 100% every time?
well, I think that not necessarily. I think my takeaway is, of course, it depends on the type of person. I think if we're applying if we go back to grade school, we can think about if you study really hard and you put in all the work, you're going to get 100%. But if you do just enough, C's get degrees. I know that we don't want to encourage that type of behavior, but if you get somewhere in like the 80 to 85% range, I think that might be okay, because 100% means you're definitely not going to run out of money in retirement according to the inputs that you're using. And if you get somewhere, if you have a little bit of slack, maybe high 80s, low 90s, that means that maybe you spend some more money today. You spend some more money upfront in retirement, doing some things that you always dreamed of, or you always wanted to do. So I don't necessarily think that everyone should be aiming for 100%, but I want to get Brendan's take on this.
Yeah, I mean, I think at a high level, like Monte Carlo is just introducing chaos to the plan in the sense of like it takes us from a two-dimensional world where we're assuming straight line returns on investments on things like inflation, and it introduces variance in the sense of like if you're going to average a 6% rate of return on your investments over the lifetime of a retirement plan, and you're going to take out a certain amount each year, and inflation's going to increase what you need each year by a certain amount. It's great, and you can do that in a straight line and probably assess just based on what the percentage need from the portfolio is, whether it feels, good or not. You need some experience to determine that. But to take it a step further is, sure, we're going to average 6%, but we're going to have returns that are all over the map because we're investing in the stock market or the stock and the bond market in some capacity. So you can start to see what happens if the order of the returns isn't necessarily a straight line, and how that can impact the plan when you're pulling money from it in particular. So when you do that and you get a score, what it's telling you is the percentage of times out of the 1,000 trials or 10,000 trials, like whatever the sample size is, that you didn't run out of money. And so as Kay said, if it's 100%, you are probably leaving some money on the table. And if you want to leave like a ton of money to the next generation, then like maybe that's your MO and that's cool. But you could run it at different levels depending on how risky you want to be. Like if running out means different things to different people. Like you could run a plan that's 50-50. And if you have a lot of pension and social security income that's kind of outside of the plan, and that's going to cover all of your fixed expenses or close to it, then maybe you want to run it hot and see how much more you can pull from your portfolio, because the worst case is, I'm fine. I've got that other income. Like the Tommy Boy quote, still got that meat lover's pizza in the trunk. No big deal, I think. Yeah. So like it depends. Like I think these tools are all over the place and they're all a little bit different and they're kind of black boxes. So I think you got to use them responsibly. And I think that unsurprisingly. I think that having a financial planner who knows what's baked into it and can interpret the results and communicate them is probably more helpful than just like punching numbers in on a website and getting a percentage that doesn't mean anything or a green light or something.
It says, honey, it says we're good, so we're out.
Yeah.
We're going to retire.
I mean, it's better than not having any information, but I think that you can probably gain like a false sense of certainty by plugging your stuff into a tool that says, go for it, when it's going to be garbage in, garbage out, like anything that uses data. Like, you've got to be sure about what's going in and then what's being assumed under the hood to know how much you can trust the results. And then even the results are open for interpretation, I think.
Yeah. To go back to my grade school analogy, I don't think they should ever be viewed as like a pass-fail.
Definitely not.
It's kind of like a sliding scale, maybe even graded on a curve. I don't know. But just to
it's a compass though. Like, it's pointing you in a direction. It's not telling you pass fail. But like, if we put it into a percentage term, then everybody wants to get an A because that's our default is like, sure, I'd probably want it to be a higher percentage or 100 if I could, because that's how everything else is scored. But that's not what this is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think along the lines of a pass fail, I think one of the ways that a Monte Carlo score can be interpreted is if it does spit out a planned failure. That I know we've talked about it before, how a planned failure doesn't necessarily mean that you're doomed. It just means that you got to change something. Maybe you have to cut some expenses back or work another year, and that's going to change the score. And I think, Bren, like you said, understanding the inputs and the outputs is your best bet. So then you can understand the different levers that can be pulled. And I just want to share some numbers. This is from JP Morgan's Guide to Retirement. I'm going to talk about average healthcare costs in retirement and the different inflation rates. So historical inflation rates are just over 2%, but we want to inflate healthcare costs at least 5% per year. So from JP Morgan's info, the average Medicare cost for someone turning 65 in 2024 is $542 a month, or about $6,500 per year. By the time the person is 95, the average Medicare cost is going to be just under $1,500 a month and about $17,800 per year. So
it's going to triple in about 30 years.
Yeah, and I think healthcare costs, like I said, are inflating at a different rate than overall inflation. So you got to be able to break out healthcare costs from base expenses and use those two pieces of information differently. Just speaks to the being able to customize the plan and being able to pull the different levers inside of that plan.
And you can, we've all messed around with these Monte Carlo calculators where it's like, well, let's add another year of work, or let's come up with a different mix of how our assets are going to be invested. And you can manipulate the numbers to really any outcome that you want. I think the important things are, if you do wind up in a situation that's trending towards less than a 50% positive outcome, you need to be aware. It doesn't mean that that's going to happen, but you need to be aware of how things look.
I think it's probably important context too. That's going to be case by case to add to that conversation. If you're running a plan with those sort of margins, how quickly a change would be needed, and like defining change. Change isn't going to mean like we change the investments around. The change is going to be cutting spending. Right. Like that's the change. If you want to course correct, if you've run at 50% and results that you get in real time have you headed down one of the other 50 where the plan depletes. Like that's important. And I think it's important to realize like how are you going to recognize it in the moment, and how soon are you going to be able to make changes, and how cuttable are what, X percent of your expenses, like how quickly could you cut those, and like, are you willing to do that? And I mean, those are the things that you need to understand that aren't just in the percentage outcome or whatever sliding scale the results are there. Like I think that's the color that you need to have to responsibly use the feedback that you get from some of these tools.
Certainly helpful. You just got to know what they're what part they play in the whole picture.
Yeah, Brent, I think the compass analogy is great. It points in the right direction, and you'll probably want to run multiple different iterations of the plan, changing and tweaking inputs to see.
Just play with the inputs at different expense levels to see
Yeah.
like that's probably the one that you have the most control over. So like when your plan doesn't work, I don't think it's smart to go into the Monte Carlo tool and just beef up the returns until it does, or lower your life expectancy until it works, or like lower inflation or taxes or any of the other assumptions that are going into there. Like the thing you should probably play around with is the income thresholds, and then do some reflection on whether that's realistic or not. Like you can make the retirement plan work if you just say you're going to spend less, but then if you don't actually spend less, you're headed down a different track. So like you have to do what you tell the machine you're going to say you do. It's just giving you some extra color by adding variance to the returns is really all the Monte Carlo tool is, adding above and beyond taking retirement income planning inputs and building assumptions on them. Like you still have to be responsible with it, I think is maybe the important point.
Yeah, I think it's important for people to not get, not just try and get 100% or not to manipulate the data just to get a good score. You should input, you want the real stuff. You want the real information coming back to you. So you need to put the real information going in, and there's no judgment. It's not like the kids who get D's in class are going to get scolded by the teacher and have to stay after and do extra credit. It's like, you need to know where you're going, and that's why you're probably working with a financial planner who's using these tools in the first place, is to get that feedback so you can take control of your life and take control of your expenses and make the necessary adjustments to get yourself back on track. So, I guess takeaway is don't get lured into a false sense of security by these tools, and use the tools.
Garbage in, garbage out.
Garbage in, garbage out, and use the tools as a way to get feedback to take stock of your life and your retirement.